Good morning. My name is Golam Mathbor, and I would like to also echo with my two previous speakers this project, and we would not be able to come together without the excellent and marvelous work of Dr. Julie Drolet. She is the one actually who brought us together for this project. And coming back to Calgary, for me, is like homecoming. I did my higher education in Canada. I did my MSW at McGill University, my second MSW, and PhD at the University of Calgary. So I lived here for 40 years. My experiences in this field, as Dr. Drolet mentioned, that from South Asia. So let me just clarify about that. I was born and brought up in the coastal regions of Bangladesh. A country is now champion for disaster preparedness after paying a great details like losing close to 1 million people in 200 years. And also I have done work in Sri Lanka after the tsunami, Indonesia, Maldives, and recently I visited also Nepal for also another academic, the research project. And the last one is the Pakistan. And in fact, I was very reluctant, though I'm from South Asia, but many of my colleagues, particularly Professor Dr. Lina Damina Lee and Karismin, inspired me to go there despite all the challenges and panic from my family, my personal family. So let me, and of course my lived experiences, I have I must say, more than 5 decades of experience in this disaster relief and management, as I have the lived experiences in the coastal regions of Bangladesh for 18 years. Then, of course, educational experiences from Canada. My PhD is about effective community participation in coastal development projects. So I had to look at maritime provinces in Canada. And I'm living in the United States for the last 18 years, so I keep also a track of what's happening, in terms of Hurricane Katrina. And I became a victim of Sandy because I lived in New Jersey, less than 2 miles from Atlantic Ocean. So let me focus on what I'm supposed to share my knowledge and experiences based on this SHARC-sponsored project, Social Sciences Humanities Research Council of Canada, and my project site was Pakistan. I had been to Pakistan twice. First time, I went for 26 days, and second time I went for 2 weeks. And mainly I looked into the flood. And we know that, my main actual experiences comes out of the cyclone. I believe we are all very clear about hurricane, difference between hurricane, cyclone, and typhoon. I believe it's the same thing, but it depends on the location where it takes place. So a cyclone also brings like the deluge, tidal charges. I believe you remember 1997 Red River floods in this part of Canada. So Pakistan, as has been reported in their National Monsoon Contingency Plan, experienced 13 major floods. The super flood was the 2010, and 2011 is the rain flood that severely affected the Sindh province, particularly the research site that I went to do my research, and it's called Bodin district. In fact, 2010 was very much the neighboring district called Thata district. There's a reason that I'm actually mentioning that, was very much affected, dismantled, and casualties and loss of lives and livelihoods in that district. And Bodin district was more affected, their neighboring, in 2011 rain floods. That's where I did my research. So particularly for this presentation, I think I have about 10 minutes, because we have taken actually a little bit longer time for introduction and other things. So I'm going to be very specific in terms of what are the learnings and what the takeaway and take-on experiences for Alberta College of Social Workers. I think there are many issues actually emerged out of this research, but I'm going to focus on mainly the gender role, particularly in that very conservative society where the veil is a regular day thing. And how still, despite all those restrictions and other, the societal cultural facts, still women are contributing more than men. That's what the specific learning from. And still we know that disaster disparity is there. And we do hear it from other part of the world as well. And we are going to just focus on how the women's contributing in building resiliency, because this is about the rebuilding lives post-disaster. So let me move on. My partners, actually I worked with government, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and also the local people. Lead Pakistan, an innovative think tank working on leadership for environment and development. They are based in Islamabad. So they are the one who facilitated my work in the Sindh province. And I hired 2 research assistants from Pakistan because the Urdu is the language. I understand, but I cannot write. I cannot read. And the sources of information for what I'm going to share with you coming from 2 focus group discussions, one with women, one with men. I think equal number 24 and 25 people. And I went to a place which is a very remote site. I did not like to just go to the cities and the towns because we wanted to see how the rural communities are handling the effects of disasters. And also I interviewed 10 people. Each interview took place like 2 hours. I interviewed even the chief of the National Disaster Management Authority, and he is housed in the Prime Minister's office. So these are the sources of information that I'm going to share with you. Indus River, the Bodin district that I went is east side of the Indus River. So the river erosion, because the challenges is like weak and tenuous infrastructure, so easily river gets flooded, and it's connected with also India. So there are environmental things happening at the upstream, particularly in Nepal, Bhutan, lot of deforestation going on, sediment rolls over, and accordingly the low-lying areas gets flooded. Just to put the things into context, the weak infrastructure, weak facilities, this is what actually happened when the flood affected the regions. So we know Pakistan is a huge country. Out of 4 provinces, well, there is another one called now Gilgit-Baltistan, the 5th one. So this is in Sindh province. And Sindh province has about 29 districts. And Bodin is one of the districts. So this is what the Bodin districts. Population is, I think I'm missing 10, close to 2 million people. And you see the rural population is 84%. Minority population, particularly this is an area very closer to the border of India, 19%. Literacy rate is very poor. And look at the population growth rate, 3.2%. So this is what the Baksho Dero, the rural areas that I went. It took 5 hours for me to go from Karachi to this place. So what are the gender roles post-disaster in Pakistan? This is something really eye-opening experience for me. As a result of this flood, women's work doubled, because previously they used to take care of, as like anywhere else in the society, children, elderly, cooking, and household activities. Now, they required to lend their labor and support for reconstruction and rebuilding, like because post-disaster. And also, they work side by side with the men in building their homes. So there are some anecdotes, coming from the interviews. They helped women. Some of the challenges, as I mentioned, the shelter houses that they had at that time, very low-lying, easily can get inundated. And in fact, that's what happened. And also, they're not gender and culturally friendly, because the women, men, it's a very segregated society, we all know that. So women had to wait for the whole day long until sunset to go for defecation during the flood. They could not go back to their home because the whole area was inundated. So that was an issue. And also we found that reconstructing houses, they helped, and also I want to also mention here that if you look at the gender inequality values, Pakistan ranked at the very bottom, and also for the human development. And these are the issues matters in rebuilding lives post-disaster. So before I talk about the recent development, the challenges, as I mentioned, and also what we have learned specifically other than gender disparities and women's more contribution than the men in reconstructing and rebuilding lives. Mutual help. When Tata district was affected in 2010, they did not wait. They came forward to help the neighboring district. As my colleague mentioned that, I have built a theory which is published in the International Social Work Journal, Social Capital Theory in Disaster Management. Bonding, bridging, linking, that we need to cultivate on. And also, community mobilization of resources. So they mobilize resources like internally, and also use of indigenous knowledge, the lived experience of the people. As I mentioned, they came forward. They did not wait for even a second for the external organization went, and they really provided also a lot of services in the area. For the Bodin district, and the affected areas. So for social workers, before I talk about the recent developments, what are the take on and what are the skills and knowledge that has implication for Alberta College of Social Workers? From also my long drawn experiences and insights that I have been working for so long in this area, I think social workers are in a unique position in the society because social workers work with the people, for the people, by the people, and lived with the people. So social workers are very familiar with the people, those who are mentally frail, those who need special accommodation in terms of transferring them or taking them, transporting them to the shelter houses when there is a warning. And also, social workers are very familiar with the asset mapping. My colleague mentioned the community resources mobilization. Social workers also, I think, is a natural fit in disaster relief and management. When I first went to McGill University, I was working on disaster relief and management. My professor said, what this has to do with in social work? Now you see, there are many experts, and we know that social workers can play a monumental role in serving in all three stages of disaster, before, during, and after. One example, as I mentioned, that we see in 1997 Red River flood that affected Canada. The learning was that the communities and the towns and the cities that were better and well prepared in terms of human and social capital were less affected. This is evident, this comes from the research at the University of Manitoba. Another important thing that social worker can play and a wonderful role in terms of ensuring equitable treatment that we need to provide for the disaster victims. 2008 World Disaster Report said, disaster do not discriminate. We do. Preferential treatment, who will get what. We have seen a lot from the Hurricane Katrina as well. So social workers, I think, can play a wonderful role because they are familiar with the people's needs and also the resources. So because of this familiarity, I think both with the victims of disaster and the knowledge about the resources that required immediately to piece together lives and livelihood post-disaster, I think this is another important role that social worker can play. But one thing, everywhere we learn that either we are not going forward to lend our skills and the strategies that we are familiar with, both from internal perspective, psychodynamic perspective, as well as from the community, because we are trained in both. Either we are not moving forward, we are not becoming proactive, or the institutions, the government, non-governmental, civil society organization are not calling for our services. So I think that's where I'm going to end. I think I will take the questions later on. Thank you very much.